Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else to something very special, as it is the month of Halloween. A little while ago, I was contacted by a company known as Dimension Bucket Media, a book publishing company that centers itself around horror literature. The kind fellows over there approached me about their most recent project, a collaboration with the original author of The Showers, a story which I have on numerous occasions cited as being one of my favorite creepypastas out there, in order for his classic No Sleep short story to be revised and expanded from its original Reddit appearance and released in ebook and paperback form. I repeat, the story has been updated, expanded, and released in paperback or ebook format. The company asked me if I was interested in sitting down with Dylan himself and asking a few questions about his story and about the book in order to get it out there. I think it's great what these guys are doing, helping authors get their stories out there in more ways than one. So first and foremost, I want to give a huge thanks to Dimension Bucket Media for setting up this interview. I shall leave links down in the description to the books' Amazon pages so you can check it out for yourself, and I highly recommend that you do so in order to support your fellow horror authors. With that said, sit back and enjoy this exclusive interview with the author of The Showers himself, Dylan Sindelar. Dylan, it's good to have you here. How you been?
I've been alright, man. Just kind of busy, but thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, first of all, congratulations on getting your story published. I think you very much earned it.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, of course, I can imagine. It's gotta be the dream, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Not anything that I really expected to happen. So yeah, but it's definitely a dream, for sure.
So, why don't we start out with something basic as a question for this interview we got going here. When writing The Showers, because it is such a well-paced and thought-out story, who or what were your main influences, if any, and were you inspired by anyone or anything in particular?
I mean, I grew up reading and watching pretty much all different kinds of horror. It's been my wheelhouse since I was really young. So, I mean, I could cite a number of directors or series or anything like that. But it's all just sort of an amalgamation of the horror I've consumed in general and the style of my own that I've tried to develop through it.
Of course.
In real life, like, I was inspired by, I don't know, a couple teachers of mine who were storytellers, very much so. A very close friend of mine who was in a class a teacher told us a story on Halloween, and years later I just recalled that sort of detail and thought it would be a good framing device. Yeah, so that's kind of where the influence came from. And then as far as the newer stuff, I make references to like Heart of Darkness, which is one of my favorite novellas of all time, sort of like a downward spiral into chaos and insanity and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
The second part sort of leans on that framework a little bit. Like it leans on that whole downward spiral. So in terms of like literature, I guess that would be a pretty big source. But yeah, that's outside of like your Lovecraft, your Stephen King, your horror writers.
Yeah, of course, the bare essentials, yes, so to speak, right?
Yeah, the foundations.
Yeah. That's a great answer, you know. Of course, you take inspiration from all kinds of sources when making your own, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, like I said, it's just sort of the end result of consuming so much of it throughout my life, So,
second question is this. I think what drew me towards your story in the first place, and probably a lot of other people as well when I read it, was how human and relatable it feels, both in terms of story and the scenarios that go on in it. For example, I think everyone had that one cool teacher who, every time they spoke, you paid attention. And the surreal experience of then meeting a teacher like that years later in an out-of-school setting is just... It's a very hard feeling to pinpoint, right?
Yeah, it's a surreal experience for sure.
Yeah, it's just surreal. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's surreal, uncanny. Like it catches you so much, so very off guard.
Sort of gives you perspective, right?
Yes, definitely.
So on that note, like, I gotta ask, and you're allowed to go as far or as little in depth as you'd like, but were some of the more standout characters in your stories, such as Mr. Maze and or Karen, based on real people or real life experiences that you've gone through?
Yeah, I think the story itself is like pretty near and dear to my heart. Like both parts of it, I sort of wrote at points in my life where I needed to get stuff out, but it'd be easy to just say like Karen was inspired, or Mr. Mays were inspired by actual people. They sort of were the whole idea of, you know, meeting a teacher outside of school years later when you see their person like that. I'm friends with some of my teachers from high school. They're certainly not traumatized drunks from what from
Oh yeah, that's what you'd hope.
yeah, or at least not in my experience. So I pulled from a couple people, a couple different inspirations. The dedication to the book is actually to teachers. I wanted to be an English professor. I went to school for a little bit, actually. Teachers are very important to me. Obviously, I've had several girlfriends in the past, but Karen isn't necessarily like an amalgamation of them either. They're certainly inspired by real people who have been in my life, but they are the characters themselves. Their content is more suit the themes that I was going for with the story and the message I wanted to get across, the idea I wanted to get across, which was essentially, here's 3 different people who deal with trauma and traumatic events in very, very different ways, very unhealthy ways, but very, very different ways. So.
Oh yeah, and that's what that's one of the things that I picked up on that I really like about the story, is that each character that you come across has one or several flaws that get in the way of them, you know, living life to the fullest extent, I suppose, and that's one of the many things that I really like about the story.
Yeah, that I don't know if it just sort of came out or if I was going for it from the get-go, but I think that might be part of what makes it relatable, outside of like the little details of like running into teachers or a friend that you have that sort of speaks like this, or a trip that you went on. Like everyone has some sort of traumatic incident in their past, or knows of someone who has trauma in their lives, and probably knows someone who hasn't dealt with it in a healthy way, whether it's drinking their way through it, or just not addressing their problems, or focusing their attention onto other things and ignoring their own issues, potentially focusing on other people's issues and ignoring their own issues. Like, so hopefully that's part of it that's relatable, and hopefully the message gets across that, you know, there are ways to do it, and that you're not alone in that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very powerful message to put in your story, and something that will resonate with a lot of people.
I hope so, yeah.
Where exactly did you get the ideas for the horrifying events that transpire in the story? You know, as you left most of it very vague, do you consider the events up to interpretation and speculation, or do you have a definitive interpretation in your mind that you perhaps wish to keep secret, so it's up to the reader?
The events themselves were sort of, I guess, just born out of a lot of what I was watching and reading at the time. I'm pretty sure around this period of time, the first season of True Detective on HBO had come out, and it's sort of centered around like the swamplands in Louisiana, which is, you know, a pretty great setting for any sort of horror location that I wanted this to be at, which was right next to Colorado, where I'd grown up. I was living in New Jersey at the time I wrote the first part of the story, but Nebraska and Kansas, for the most part, are just really more or less the way I described them in the story, is just a wasteland of dirt and corn, and so that sort of always fascinated me, especially driving through there on several different occasions. You do hit those mom and pop gas stations, you do hit those exits where you're like, you feel like you just took a turn into the Twilight Zone, and so that was sort of a jumping off point, was the further you go off the highway in a place like Nebraska or Kansas, or places I've spent a lot of time, like Montana growing up, which was my grandparents lived outside of Billings. It's a whole lot of farmland. It's like the further you go, what sort of like dastardly things do people get up to
Oh yeah.
in those places. Yeah, that's sort of where the farmhouse in the middle of nowhere came from, but then what's inside the farmhouse, but then what's under the farmhouse, and it was just sort of born of taking that everything one step further and seeing what came of it. And as far as interpretation goes, I think it's pretty difficult to write I mean, you can be super, super vague, and I hope in this final edition of it, the actual core of the story comes across more. I think it's left a little less up to interpretation than the originals were. I definitely have a solid interpretation that I would like to keep mostly to myself, but I think I've added enough to it that can sort of at least pick up on what was probably going there. But it's also a point in the story that it doesn't exactly matter. I mean, it matters what's there, but part of the fun of it, or part of the allure, is taking the pieces and seeing what you make of it. Like, you're given just a few clues and see how you arrange that and how you interpret it, and I think that's definitely part of the fun of it.
Definitely playing to the strengths of having it be a story written in the way it is, and also having it be set where it is.
Yeah, and I think the style in which it's written, which is first person, it sort of lends itself to not getting all the answers. Part of the reason, at least in the beginning, that it's such a memorable experience for Jack is that he doesn't get the answers. A thing happened, and there's not really, at that point, a monster to fight back against. It's just a really messed up, confusing thing happened to someone and completely shook his foundation, his understanding of reality, his worldview. That would shake a lot of people to the core, especially if you're someone who doesn't necessarily believe in ghosts or things of that sort. Experiencing something like that with your own eyes would definitely shake your foundation. And so having Jack be the one that tells the story and not necessarily have all of the answers, I think, is a crucial part of it. And hopefully it doesn't sound like a cop-out. I do have...
Oh, no, absolutely not.
I do have a background and explanation for pretty much everything in the story. So
that's something that is very well thought out in the story, the fact that he doesn't get all the answers that he wants, because when everything's clear to you, it almost feels as though, what is there left to find or think about? And I think not having all the answers could definitely make someone want to share the story with the world, or just never be able to get over it. So I think that definitely came across well.
Yeah, thanks. It's definitely one of the more horrifying aspects, but just that lingering feeling of uncertainty, I think, is that, yeah, it sticks with Jack. I think it sticks with people when they experience a situation like that. So,
what was it that prompted you to revise and continue the story years later? Did you feel unsatisfied with the original version, or maybe you felt an itch to return to that setting once more?
Yeah, I never had really planned on coming back to it. It was just sort of a thing that happened. I was living at the time with a few friends of mine in New Jersey, who are horror creators. The guys who, I don't know if you ever heard of Everyman Hybrid on YouTube. It's a Slender Man.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, so the three of us, or those three, and then myself and my friend Austin, who also had a Slender Man, we all lived in the same house together. So it was like sort of this it was just a creative center, a creative hub. I just sort of started writing this one night while I was sitting in the living room. Evan was watching something on TV, and I just started blowing through this, and sort of like it says at the beginning of the new one, I literally did just write it and post it. I had a few drinks, was not thinking about it. It was a story I just wanted to get out there, and I got it out there over the course of a couple nights for what it is, without any real editing or a whole lot of forethought, but put it out there. And then suddenly, over the course of the next few months, people were doing readings of it on YouTube, and it won No Sleep's Scariest Story of the Year, and I was just kind of sitting there like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. But it was sort of like a flash in the pan thing, and over the course of, I guess, it's now been a little over 6 years, I would get emails or Reddit mail every now and then from someone who's like, hey, can I do a reading of this for my YouTube channel? Can I write a script for this for my screenwriting class? I think there are still a couple people out there trying to make short films out of it, and I sort of thought that was going to be the end of it, which was fine with me because it inspired creativity in anyone, in any form. Yeah. So I just thought that was going to be the end of it, and that was going to be cool. But I got to talking one night with some friends about just old projects and things that revisit and things we're going to be working on in the future. And the showers came up, and it's sort of a mantra with, not necessarily a mantra, but it's sort of an idea that I really admire in a lot of artists that I like, is that I wouldn't want to come back to something if I didn't have something to say about it, something new to say about it, a fresh
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
take on it. And I could see the argument that the newer stuff is a retread of the original, but the way that I've sort of thought about it, or the way I thought about it going into it, is the first story is a campfire story. It's a story you tell your friends, like he does in the story, around a campfire to scare them. And then the second half is what happens to a person who, like, after the fact, what happens to a person who survives a horror story, like, which is not necessarily a new take, but what happened to Jack after this series of events. He played it off as like, oh, this is sort of a crazy thing that happened, but, you know, what happened in the interim? Where is he at now, and how did that affect him? And I just thought that that was pretty alluring. One of the reasons for that was, like I'd previously mentioned, like these were sort of written at two pretty key moments in my life where I was at very different stages, but also dealing with a lot personally. Yeah, it was kind of an outlet for my own anxieties, my own stresses, and some things I needed to say on top of that. So it was a mix. It was a mix of things. But essentially, yeah, I just thought I had a new take on it, or an addition to the story that I thought was important, or that I thought people would find interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's very good. And I think it's wonderful that you were able to balance all the personal stuff while also making a great story that really resonated with people. So, yeah.
Thanks. I think that might be part of why people connect to it on that level, is there's a lot of me in there. There's a lot of me just talking to the audience through someone else's voice. So
I also think it's very funny that you mentioned that a lot of people have been approaching you about making a short film about it. That years ago, though, I actually also wanted to do that, because I don't know if you're the same way, but whenever I like read stories and stuff like that, I get such a strong image in my head of what's going on. And I just saw like the characters in front of me, and I was like, oh, this would be perfect in this movie or whatever. So it's kind of funny that you would mention that.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, hopefully I was able to paint it that way for a lot of people. It's definitely alluring to me too. I have, you know, some ideas for a screenplay adaptation to it. We'll see what happens with that, but I think it lends itself to some pretty cool imagery, and I hope some of those projects that I had mentioned before come to fruition at some point, because I would love to see people's take on this in a different medium.
Oh yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So on that note, I just have to make sure. So I went back a few days ago to reread the story along with the new parts that were added recently, so I could refresh my memory on it all and be brought up to speed. And I started noticing a bunch of things that I don't remember being there in part 1 and 2 when I first read it all those years ago. Is that just my mind being fuzzy and me not remembering things correctly, or did you actually go back and change it up a bit?
I did go back and change it up a bit.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I'm not crazy.
Well, yeah, I can't guarantee that, but
oh, shit.
But yeah, so when I was approached by Dimension Bucket about publishing the story, initially I was just sort of like, oh yeah, cool, it's already out there. We'll see, you know, who wants to check it out as a hard copy. Then over the course of the last several months, longer than that, I guess, I was like, well, you know, if it's going to be put out there, it might as well be my best version of it. Like I had mentioned, I never edited the originals at all, and had not gone back and read them in a very long time, up until at least when I was writing the newer stuff. So I went back going through it and just kind of wanted to touch up things here or there, touch up the grammar, punctuation, do some proofreading and editing and whatnot. But that sort of turned into breaking down the original and not necessarily rewriting it, but just rebuilding it, making it more coherent, making it sort of sync up better with the newer stuff, both thematically and in like voice, because obviously when you're reading someone's work from 5 years ago and today, it's very different. And I didn't want to lose that 5-year gap. I think that is very crucial to this story.
Very essential, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that voice isn't diminished, but there is quite a bit of additional content that gives a little more answers here or there, gives more perspective, and just sort of shines a little bit more light on the characters and the actual story and the events that transpire, while hopefully keeping the spirit of the original. I wouldn't George Lucas it or go completely overboard, but I mean I hope I didn't. So we'll see what people think. But yeah, there is quite a bit of additional content, I think, when it was initially compiled into a manuscript by Chris at Dimension Bucket. It was something like 82 pages and ended up in that manuscript turning out at like 115 or something like that. So there's quite a bit new there, but I think it helps create a more consistent story and a better world and a better perspective on our three main characters.
Did you ever expect your story to get as widespread as it did? And did you ever expect it to be released in ebook and paperback form like this?
Definitely not. No, Todd.
No.
Both questions. Like I said, I sort of got the story out, threw it up over the course of a couple nights, and set it aside. And then said the first thing was someone mentioned me at some point in October and was like, "Hey, Mr. Creepypasta on YouTube just read your story," and I was like, "No shit, okay." And then like I said, the No Sleep Award, and I was like, "Wow, this is getting quite a bit of attention."
Yeah, people are actually taking it seriously. What the hell?
Yeah, it was just a thing I had written, and it was just gonna be that. So that was crazy and unexpected. But then, like I said, I was just like, cool, but we're done here. And then wrote the new stuff. Didn't expect a similar reaction, but I just wanted it to be out there. Then I was approached by Dimension Bucket, and with them wanting to publish it, and was super shocked. Had no idea that was ever going to happen in any capacity, and but I've been really excited about it through the entire thing. It's obviously been a dream of mine to get something published at some point, so very, 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 very unexpected for it to happen in the way that it did, but I'm happy about it. So
that's really great that you just wrote the first part like just in a few nights and just whatever got it out there, because then you avoid the inevitable what's it called? You know, when an artist keeps going back and revising their work because they're never satisfied with it and never end up publishing it.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty glad that we had a soft deadline with the book itself. Otherwise, I would still be sitting in front of my computer being like,
still be tinkering with it.
Yeah, just like, oh, just gotta switch this word here. Okay, cool. Now everything is done. I just want to read through it one more time to make sure we're good. And then 20 hours later and a whole bunch of edits, it's like, okay, now it's done. Want to go back one more time? I'm gonna check it out.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad someone stopped me at some point.
Yeah, just stop, dude. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely look forward to getting it in paperback form. It's gonna be great to have it in my collection.
I hope so. I'm kind of excited to see a book of mine on my own shelf, which is that sounded really, really not cool to say, but
no, I completely understand. So, second to last question: do you have any future projects on the horizon?
Yeah, I hope so. There's been a project that I've been working on, thinking about, sitting on for probably 6 years. I think it was sort of conceptualized at the same time that I wrote The Showers, called Twigs. There's a handful of people out there who know what the concept is and want to be involved and are involved. So something involving Twigs, I would say in the next several months, whether it's a screenplay, a proof of concept, something like that. That would be my next big project. I have little things going on here or there with some friends of mine, and then tinkering with a screenplay for the showers as well is something that I'm thinking about, or doing already, I guess, sort of a little.
So where can we follow updates for that kind of stuff?
Probably mainly my Twitter at Dylan Sindelar, and or on Facebook, Instagram. I'll probably be a little more open with what I'm working on if I know there's people listening for it.
So I think finally we can move on to the last question. Is there anything you would like to share or say to the audience? A message or perhaps advice for aspiring writers?
I think I'm running the risk of just repeating what a lot of people have already said, is just write it. Like, just if you have an idea, just get it down and get it out there. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. The original Showers was far from perfect, but I just wrote it and put it out there, and what happened. So yeah, just write it. If you're nervous about it, that's fine. Be nervous about it, correct it later. Just do it.
Yeah,
it's worth it. So.
Yeah, and I think some other valuable advice is that, you know, you don't have to write the best and most timeless masterpiece for your first or second or third story or whatever. Just start slow and see where things take you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's possible to do that. Just write, masterpiece from the get-go. It takes work, but just getting it out there is the hard part. Getting the framework out there, and then tinkering is where it gets fun, filling in the spaces. Getting your themes across, working on your characters, that's where it gets fun. But you just have to get that skeleton on the page and then work from there. That's when you fill in the flesh and everything.
So anything else you'd like to add?
I hope people enjoy the book. We have hopefully an audiobook version of it coming out in the near future as well. But even if you've read the story, I'd advise checking this out in some capacity, because I do think it's a lot more fleshed out and rewarding reading start to finish than it currently stands as the Reddit post. I think there's more to it, and it's worth checking out if you enjoyed the original or the new stuff or anything like that. So, and thank you to you for doing the interview, and thank you for anyone who has read it or listened to it or emailed me or just read it and hasn't said a word but enjoyed it. Thank you guys for checking it out at all. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day and doing this interview. It's really been great and has added a lot more flavor to the story that I didn't consider beforehand.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And I'm, if anyone ever, I don't know, my favorite aspect about putting something out there is hearing stuff back. So if anyone ever wants to email me their takes on it or just wants to talk about it, or talk about anything, talk about your own work, hit me up. I have a lot of free time and love to discuss creative stuff with people. So
yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Right, so I think that should be that. Anything else you want to say, Dylan, before we go?
Nope, just thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And there you go. That was my interview with Dylan. I certainly hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you learned some more things about writing and about the showers in general. As I said, the links to the books' Amazon pages will be down in the description, and I highly recommend that you at least give it a look. With that said, I think that should be all for this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay awesome. Goodbye.